Hello, everybody, and welcome to Manifest This Believer versus Skeptic. Today, we're going to have lots of fun and we're going to dive into Neville Goddard, who's one of Jennifer's most favorite people around this. And he talks about some of the underrated and powerful teachings around inner conversations. So, Jennifer, give us a little bit of a highlight in terms of what we're looking forward to talking about today.
Yeah, great. So, hi, everybody. I think that everyone's going to be able to relate to today's topic because today we're talking about the most underrated but powerful teachings, which are the inner conversations. So, that's the conversations that are running through your brain, whether it's out loud or in private in your own little brain, what that's doing to your health, your wealth, your love, all the things in your life, how that's manifesting in your life.
So that little voice we keep hearing in our heads, and interestingly, I'm sure many of us do. Translated, does this mean that you're talking to yourself out loud, in the shower, on the subway?
It's all of that. It's all of that, but not quite. It's the inner dialogue that runs through your mind all day long, wherever you are. So Neville says that the conversations we have in imagination with ourselves and with others are the blueprint for our reality.
Okay. Because I do a lot of muttering in traffic and talking to people in traffic in probably not a great way. So is that a form of manifesting too?
Exactly. And
Uh-oh.
oh yeah. And I live with one of those too, who's, I wouldn't just call it muttering, I would call it outright road rage. But if you are yelling at another driver, this isn't inner conversation anymore, right? This is pretty much outer conversation. But nevertheless, it's still conversation. If you're yelling at a driver, you can expect more things to come back into your life that you're going to need to yell at. And who wants to yell? Your subconscious is what shapes your world. And so I want you to think about this as it relates to what we're talking about. If you keep rehearsing the story, there are bad drivers on the road. They're all stupid. That's a good one, right? You stupid. You don't know where you're going. How about you go get a driver's license? Or let's take it into another environment. Like I'm always overlooked at work. Um, nobody listens to me. The boss thinks I'm stupid. You're going to start walking into meetings where you are overlooked, where you are going to actually get the things you're saying out loud. People pick up on that energy and then you act smaller. And then that brings more. And then as that old commercial that you and I probably remember, and they told two friends and they told two friends and so on and so on and so on, they will treat you smaller. So
But doesn't everybody talk to themselves? I mean, I know I talk to myself constantly. Sometimes if I'm babysitting a cat, I talk to the cat too. But are you telling me that the universe is actually listening?
100%, 100%, all the
So the
time,
so the
everything.
guy was annoyed with on the road today, who I very considerately let in and then observed while he raced ahead and didn't let other people in ahead of him as they were closing that side of the road, and thought, geez, guy, like, people are nice to you. It doesn't hurt for you to be nice back. So the universe heard that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the simplest way to think about this, as Neville says, is your inner world. This is law. Your inner world becomes your outer world. So if your inner world, you are angry, anxious, in a hurry, thinking someone else is stupid, your world will show you that back. Stupid, you are, more examples for you to think the same thing. And you have a
Okay.
choice, right? You have a choice. So how about instead you say they must have somewhere very, very, really important to go? Maybe something's going on in their life that they need to be in a rush. Maybe they have just come to this city and they don't know where they're going. Maybe their GPS isn't working. Like, why don't we cut people a little bit of slack? And then we will be cut some slack when the time comes.
Yeah, I guess I kind of felt I'd already cut him some slack by letting him in, and then he was acting like a jerk to other people.
So you changed your mind, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's play devil's advocate for a second here. And sometimes those inner conversations can be a little bit, ugly, like you're rehashing an argument in your head for 3 hours or 3 days, or in some cases, 3 years. What about that?
That's a perfect example. And I'll give you an example. As fresh as 24 hours ago, I received an email from somebody in my life, and there's a bit of discord. And I replayed that thing last night until 1 in the morning. You think you're venting? I thought I was venting. I know better. I know to snap out of that real fast. But What you're actually doing, what I was doing last night, is assuming that that's the dynamic. That that's the way the dynamic is always going to go because I keep replaying it in my mind. And what I'm doing is planting the seed for the same fight to happen over and over and over again.
So I think what I'm kind of hearing is you're saying absent your mind out of those situations.
Yeah,
Like, don't even entertain them.
100%. Like if you keep telling your boss off in your head, you're going to ensure that you're going to keep butting heads in the office in your 9 to 5 day job. You are
Okay.
rehearsing conflict. I am rehearsing conflict with this situation I've just recently told you about. But why? It's so easy to rehearse conflict because we love the drama and we love the story. It's a dramatic playing right out in front of us, right?
Right.
But why can't we get to the end of the movie where we start to resolve the solution? How do we come back together? What are the words that start the softening? How can I? So instead of replaying the argument, of them apologizing, why can't you replay that I did an amazing job today?
Okay. So, how do you actually catch it though? Because half the time I don't even notice my inner chatter.
Well, we don't. And that's the mic drop right there. We've talked about it 1,000 times already in this podcast. It's awareness. And
Right.
awareness is key. And, if we're talking about personal relationships, you can't resolve a relationship with someone if they have zero awareness about how they show up in the world. But what you can do, like I can't control you. But what I can do is decide to not have any of it, to carry on like everything was always fine, to carry on like keep my side of the street clean. And that
Right.
will has to start reflecting in the relationship. It has to start reflecting in the relationship. And I'll give you an example. This same dialogue I'm telling you about, this personal relationship where there is some strife in my life. We have the strife going on in the email, but on the text on the sidebar, I sent a text saying, "Hey, how'd you like the collagen that I recommended to you? Is it working for your hair?" And I completely disregarded the fact that there's drama going on over here. And I went about my daily life assuming like things were great. And guess what? I got a great response back, even
Right.
though all this turmoil is going on the other side. So I think you should try it.
It sounds to me like that's a lot of affirmations with extra steps rolled into it.
Yeah, totally. It's the extra steps, right? Because the affirmation might be in my head, everything's fine, nothing's wrong, she's just having a bad day. That's the affirmation. But the one step further was the actual text that said, "Hey, how did you like the collagen? Is it working for you? Do you like the taste of it?" Blah, blah, blah. I completely put out there in a communication to the other person language that I would be just as normal if there was no conflict going on. In other
Okay.
words, I ignored that there was any strife and I barreled right on through.
So it's really, you go on rehearsing the win, as we talked about last week, instead of the disaster of what the drama might be going on right now.
And I mean, listen, we all have a choice. We all have relationships in our life that aren't at 100%. And how long are we going to rehearse? How long are we going to stay? It's like we talked about before, staying in the present. If I continue to go back and try and fix the past instead of staying in the present, I have a choice. I can do my part. I can't force you to come along, but I can play today going forward the way I want to see things go.
So here's where I get a little bit skeptical, because Neville Goddard said that we can have conversations with other people in our imagination, and we've talked about this, and that, as you said, they'll eventually respond that way in reality. It strikes me as it kind of might be either a little creepy or a little bit manipulative.
It's not, it's law. It's
Okay, tell
law.
me more.
You have to see in the outer world what goes on in your inner world. And so, even if you live in a delirious world, how can two people, and I've said this before, how can two people go to a party, the same party, with the same people, and the same food, and the same drink, and the same candles, and the same, how can we go to the same party? And I
Right.
come away saying, that was the best party I've been to this summer. And you come away from the party saying, those people there were nasty.
Okay. So, really starting to treat people within your reality of wanting it to be a specific way as if it's true, even if it's not.
Totally live in delirium, like live in a delirious world. This is assumption, it's not manipulation. And if you're constantly assuming they don't respect me, those people were nasty, nobody talked to me, wah, 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 guess why they didn't talk to you? I don't want to talk to wah, wah, wah.
So it sort of it sounds a little bit like people are going to remember this, but when Michelle Obama said, when they take the low road, we take the high road. And it
Totally.
seems like it's this whole mental high road thing that you're taking when you're dealing with stress or conflict or challenges with other individuals, that you go, you know what, I'm going to take the high road, not out of a moral supremacy, but out of one's own self-protection.
I would even go further than protection. To me sounds like I am protecting against safety.
Okay.
It's a choice. It's a choice. I'll give you another example. I reached out to a friend of mine recently that was a very good friend during my married days, and our children played together. And I reached out to her on Sunday to say, we have an option coming up that we could get together. Crickets. It's now Wednesday, right? And so I have a choice. I can decide that she is kicked me out of her social circle. She's taken sides. She feels awkward because of the divorce. This is never going to happen again. I've done something wrong. That's a choice. Or, right? Or I can say, I can even call it out and send a text, which I've actually already written, to say, hey, listen, if things are awkward because of the divorce, I totally get it. I don't mean to put you in a tough spot. Know that I loved our memories. Know that I loved our time together, and I'd love to see you again. But if that's not in the cards, I love you. We have great memories, and I
So
choose
be it.
peace. I choose
Yeah.
peace. So, again, instead of protecting myself like, oh, I got to protect my heart because she's going to hurt me, it's no, I choose to love you anyway. I loved our memories. We had a great life together. And as my mom used to say, a reason, a season, a lifetime. Sometimes we're not always meant to be with people for a lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe that's it. It's not necessarily the protection of peace, but the choice of peace in one's life.
Totally. But also 9 times out of 10 they will rise to meet you because people like to play in high vibe places. They want to
Okay.
be with high vibe people. So you're not controlling them or manipulating them. You're controlling the state of how you show up.
Right. Got it. Okay. That's interesting. So, can you maybe give us some more practical examples of what this might look like?
Okay, so here's a couple. Instead of replaying, here's number one. So let's say your partner forgets to call you. Happens to all of us. Instead of replaying your partner forgetting to call, imagine them saying, I love how connected we are. We're so connected, I didn't need to call you,
Okay.
right? Instead of he forgot me, he got so busy, he's so tied up in, my partner happens to be a male, he's so tied up with work, he's forgotten me again. That's going to go down a spiral. If you keep that up, you're going to end up in court. But you have a choice. He feels so connected to me. He knows we don't need to talk all the time.
So, at what point, though, does that become delusional insofar as you're giving that other, as they say, people will treat you how you let them treat you. And if that becomes habitual and disrespectful, at what point do you say, hang on a second here, I can, say those things, but clearly the behavior and the actions don't match it? Is there a
I think
tipping
we're
point
talking
there?
about two. Yeah, I think we're talking about two different things, though. I mean, and I think the disrespect sometimes does get escalated from these tiny little things that we blow up. I'm
Okay.
not talking about disrespect. I'm talking about he forgot to call. Big whoop.
A momentary lapse.
Right? We're not talking about a habitual pattern of coming home at midnight every night for 25 years and finally a wife saying, you know what? I've had enough. We're
Yeah.
talking about the little things. And those little things, you and I both know they can turn into a rat's nest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's number one.
Agreed. Okay.
So this one's so close to my heart because my partner, the minute somebody doesn't call him back about a proposal he has sent, he goes, they're ghosting me. They're
Yeah.
ghosting me. And I constantly, and he says it like that, which is, they're ghosting me. And now it's a joke because he knows what he's doing. Instead of deciding you've been ghosted, why don't you say to yourself, they're busy. They're wrapping some other things up. They can't wait to work with me.
Yeah.
Why do we always go to the negative? Why do we always go to the negative?
I think the funny part of this too is like, somebody sends a message or you send a message and you get an emoji back. And you're like, you got to send me an emoji. You can't bother to take the time. But like you said, you don't know what's going on in their life, or you send somebody out a brief for a job that you need done. And then you're like, they responded asking the same questions that I already put in the brief, and you're like, they're not reliable, they're not responsible, they're not this, they're not that. And I got to say, look, we're Gen X, right? We've got expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody works the way that we do. And
No.
sometimes you've got to go, hang on a second. I might have sent them a message in the afternoon. And when we were Gen Xers, it's 11 o'clock at night and you're still responding. And other folks might go, my baby kept me up all night and I didn't read the brief, or I read some of it and I missed that piece of it.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, I,
listen,
I hear what you're saying.
sometimes what we're talking about is micromanagement, and
Yeah.
nobody likes to be micromanaged. And
Yeah.
micromanagement begets more micromanaged things to feel you need to micromanage. So it's that whole again, I want to bring us back to where we are. Your inner world creates your outer world. It starts
Yeah.
in your mind. So if you are constantly in your mind ruminating over the brief not being read, the person not showing up, the person not being at your expectation, they're going to continually show up in a way that proves your point.
Do you think to a certain extent too, if you're not in some form of relationship, and I don't mean romantic necessarily, but in relationship, whether it's a business relationship or what have you, if you're not quite in relationship with that person yet, and you're working to build relationship in one way or another, that we have such an expectation in today's world that there is an immediate response that's an enthusiastic yes, as
Yep.
opposed to understanding that it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not allowing that time anymore because we have all these devices and instantaneous responses. Where, I mean, you and I know this. We've worked in the world where it could take 5 meetings with a client until you build trust and relationship and understanding of how each other works before you even decide you want to work together.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of feels like people want it instantaneously. And maybe that speaks to those voices in our heads where we're so used to instant satisfaction that when it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen, we spiral to the negative.
Totally. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you another example. So, a friend of mine holds several real estate properties, and we all know that on the first of the month, the rent is due, right? Well, if the first of the month comes and it's noon or it's 5 o'clock on the first of the month, this friend of mine starts to go into complete panic, like the house is going to go into foreclosure. And I have to remind him, I was a renter at one point. I was so used to not being a renter because I was a homeowner for so many years. I forgot I actually had to pay rent because the mortgage used to come out of my account automatically. And I have
Right.
to say to him, cut them some slack. This doesn't mean you're going to lose. This doesn't mean the tenant can't pay the rent anymore. This doesn't mean the mortgage is not going to go paid. Cut them some slack. Send them a text. Say, hey, I'm sure you're busy. Little reminder. Constantly go to, I want it today. I want it now. And if I don't get it when I want it, it isn't coming. So guess what?
Yeah. Yeah.
You will continue to see this stuff show up in your life.
Well, and here's the thing, right? As someone who is at the moment renting, who was a homeowner for a very long time, I'm in a country where I went, okay, I don't want to have to think about this, so I'll do automatic payments out of my account. And
Mm-hmm.
guess what? There are so many holidays here, bank
Uh-huh.
holidays, where even
Yeah.
though I have it scheduled for a day before it's due,
Yeah.
it gets delayed sometimes, and I lose my
Right.
mind.
And
And
you're a good payer.
exactly, and
And so
I get
there's the
myself into
lesson.
a tizzy.
Right. And
Meanwhile,
so
my
there's the
landlord is
lesson.
like, "I know you'll pay, I'm not worried about it."
Exactly. And so why can't we do that? 99% of people are good payers. The world is a good place. The universe wants to be good to me. Those are the things we need to start saying to ourselves instead of they ghosted me, my boss hates me, my cat doesn't even like me. I've said it before, I'm going to the garden to eat worms, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, do you think people actually see results from this type of belief?
Well, I know they do, but it doesn't seem to matter about what I say anymore about what happens in my life. I mean, I just gave you the example of a full on family brawl going on in email, but in text, I'm assuming niceties and I'm getting niceties back, right? So
Yeah.
try it. What I'm saying is, try it. Try being the bigger person. Try being the higher version of yourself. Listen, I didn't even know what that meant for the longest time. Higher version. Try being the bigger version. Take the high road, just like Michelle says. Take the high road. It's gonna
Yeah.
hurt. I promise you. If you're out of practice on taking the high road, it's gonna hurt, but it won't kill you.
Yeah. 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 I hear you. Okay. So what if I'm saying the words and I don't believe them?
That's a problem. But keep going. But keep going.
Okay.
Like everything starts with something. Affirmations, even if you don't believe the affirmations at first, money always comes easily and quickly to me. There's a good one. If you don't believe that, that's okay, but keep saying it because eventually you might start to listen to your own, you might start to take your own medicine.
Yeah.
Remember, assumption hardens into fact. Assumption hardens into fact. So at first it might feel fake, but over time it becomes normal. And you're training your subconscious mind by repetition. Again, I'll say it again. Assumption hardens into fact. I assume this is going to work out. It will harden into fact. It will work out. I assume my debt will be cleared. It will harden into fact. My debt will be cleared.
Right. Right. Okay. So it's not really believing right away. It's about persisting until it clicks.
100%. Exactly.
Okay.
And the fastest way for it to click is through your emotion and your
Right.
tone. So add some tone, add some warmth, add some playfulness to your inner conversations. Make them feel real. As I say, act like you're delusional. She's just having a bad day.
Okay.
I used to work with a woman back in our days, Sharon, back in my 20s. I used to work with a woman and she was our top salesperson. And we'd do cold calling back then. And she would pick up the phone and she'd get a grumpy old man. And I do mean he was a grumpy old man that day. And it was a cold call. So bless anybody out there that does cold calls. They're not easy. She picked up the phone, called this man. He was grumpy. And she said, "Are you having a bad hair day?" And the minute she said that, he said, "I have no hair." Well, the two of them started to laugh
Yeah.
and the call, right? Let's get a little more playful with life. Let's get a little more open. Let's take the high road. Let's consider a different possibility.
Right. Right. Okay. I got to admit, though, a lot of the time my inner conversations are a little bit crazy. Eventually I come around, this, and I have certain concerns about things. But maybe if I could change those scripts a little bit quicker, I can also change the outcomes a little faster.
For sure. Like your inner conversations are your script. So if you
Okay.
change the script, you will change the play. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess if nothing else, I stop wasting time rehashing conversations and stuff that haven't even happened yet that I'm worried about.
That alone will change your life. But
Right.
we're all human. We have human tendencies. I did it last night, as I said to you. It's going to happen. The key is nip it in the bud, change your environment, go for a walk, do anything to recognize. And even if you can't pivot into the new words, just recognize that's not taking me anywhere. I got to take a pause.
Right, right. Okay, some really good suggestions here today. Is there any one last thing you want to leave us with?
Yeah, like try to recognize when you are making an assumption that you don't want to harden into fact. Okay.
Right, right.
So if we can all just try this week to catch ourselves in an inner dialogue, like you look fat in those jeans. We've all done that. That's a good one. You look terrible in that outfit. Can we not catch ourselves and go, wait a minute, you look pretty darn good.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the catch. So let's try finding the catch this week.
Okay. Sounds like a great plan. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll drop another episode next week. And if you want to reach out to us, it's at info@truthanddare.ca. Thanks, Jen, and have a fantastic week, everybody.